morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. And we've got a fine show for you today. Welcome to Women's History Month. We just ended the shortest month of the year, Black History Month. And now we get the second shortest month of the year, Women's History Month. So welcome to Women's History Month. A gender line helps keep women not on a pedestal, but in a cage. This is a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is the title for today. The notorious RGB. We'll be talking a little bit about Truth Social, the State of the Union, the blockade in DC that isn't actually a blockade, and I refuse to call it a convoy or involve the word trucker at all because it's not either of those things. We'll be talking about defunding the police. We'll be talking about the state of Texas just not really being a democracy anymore. And we'll be talking a little bit about housing. First, I just wanted to address a little topic. I did call City Council Member Kenyatta Johnson this morning for a comment on something that I've been reporting on social media, which is the company BET, Black Entertainment Television, even though that isn't what they really are anymore, has been advertising their new reality TV show on city sidewalks. No, it's not your sidewalk. The city sidewalks belong to the property that they're next to. So, yeah, you can't get a permit to put graffiti on a city sidewalk because it's not yours. Anyway, so they've been putting this graffiti all throughout Councilmember Johnson's district, and I don't know why, and I don't quite understand why, and it's really annoying, and I think it should stop. I asked Councilmember Johnson's press relations person, Vincent, for a comment. His comment was that folks should report this not only to 311, but also to their local council member, because the council member's office can put pressure on the appropriate office within city government to take care of the situation. When further asked what we could do to stop this in the first place, because a reaction is never as good as an intervention, Vincent was unsure. He was unsure of what the actual legalities around this are, and what happens. Is this company, do they have a permit? No, I can guarantee you they do not have a permit. I've worked in advertising. You can't get a permit to advertise on the sidewalk. It's not your sidewalk. Anyway, that's my rant. I'm sorry. I'm a little heated about this. I'll be revisiting this over the next couple of weeks until it stops, or until, like, me and BET end up in a fight, one or the other. Anyway, so on the show today, we also have Humble Materials and Philly Pack with their show Medea. We have Jessica and Anna. And I'll bring them up on screen now. And if you could please introduce yourselves, your pronouns, what it is you do. We'll start with Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jess Noel, she, her, and I'm a theater maker, a choreographer, an educator, and a performer in Philadelphia.
Great. And Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna, they, them pronouns. I'm also a theater maker, a choreographer, and performer in Philly, and I'm a teaching artist at Philly Pack.
Great. And so tell me a little bit about Medea.
We are inspired by everything that's going on right now, and we decided to sort of uh, look at Medea through a different lens. The original Euripides version is so beautiful, and we learn so much about Medea, but we feel like we could dive deeper. We love Medea. We think that she's a complicated, incredible, fierce character, and we wanted to know more about her, and we feel that her story speaks to the moment. And just like a little side note, the original Euripides production, Medea was played by a man. So we sort of flip that on its head. And in our production, all of the characters, including Jason and Medea's father, are played by either female or gender non binary. So we're really proud of that for this particular production. Anna.
Yeah, Medea is a story. Our Medea is a story about an artist and a mom. And I actually get to portray the character of Jason, which is really exciting. And he's also an artist. And I think just being a non-binary person and playing a character like Jason has opened a huge conversation about gender for myself, and gender within this show, and I guess within society as a whole. And that's been, I think, the big challenge. And it's been really exciting for me to play, to get to switch back from this guy who is kind of just seeing his wife as exactly what she is, his wife, a mother. That's her, that's it, that's the base. And then also I get to play a character in the chorus that kind of just lives inside Medea's head. So she's a femme character. She's very like, go make your art, go do your thing. So I'm really in the show bouncing back and forth on the gender spectrum. It's been super fun and super intriguing for me just in general.
Excellent, excellent. What would you say? So often in theater, we ask the question, "Why now? Why this piece? What is it about Medea that really resonated with you and made you feel like this is the time? This speaks to now." How does Medea speak to now?
That's a two-part answer for me.
Okay.
In September, when Texas passed their 6-week abortion ban, that was September 2021, and Monica Flory and I, the playwright and director, shout out to Monica, we were sitting there with our jaws on the ground, like, how is this? How are we back here? And it just felt like the time for Medea was now. And then also, Medea historically asks a lot of questions about motherhood and parenting. And with the pandemic weighing so heavily on our shoulders, there's a lot of pretty taboo discussion topics that parents don't feel like they can really talk about. But in our production, we're asking these questions, and we're talking about it because parenting is very interesting right now.
Yeah, new parent here. Yeah, it is very interesting. Yeah, I look at things that are happening and I wonder, not only how did my parents survive, but how I'm going to survive my child's upbringing because it's crazy out there. What so Medea is a classic piece. It's a piece that's been in the zeitgeist. What I don't think it's giving away anything to call out specifics about what you find relevant, what parallels you drew. What do you think were the most important parallels as in approaching this?
Anna, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think right now for me, just the fact that our, main character is an artist and a creator, and we just lived in a hole for a long time and are just slowly being able to crawl out and make things and have people see them in like kind of a safe way. And so that has been, I think, a really relevant idea in this, that this person just wants to create and wants to make things. And I think for her, that's like some kind of autonomy in the play. Like she doesn't get much, she has an infant and she has her older children and she has her husband and her country and all of these kind of like responsibilities weighing down. And she just wants to get all of these ideas in her head out of her head. And so I guess for me, that is a big theme. And I think makes it really relevant as our whole company is we're moms, we're just kind of working, we're living our lives, we're trying to do a million things and also make something. So it's like, it's very overarching for all of us.
Okay. And where and when is Medea showing?
Medea is at Philly Pack. Our last two shows are Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. And you can get tickets at phillypack.org. And we're about to sell out Saturday, but we still have tickets available for Friday. So join us.
Great. If you do sell out Saturday, do you have any like rush wait or anything?
Yeah, we always reserve a handful of tickets at the door for last minute stragglers. So if the online sale says sold out, we'll still sell out the door.
Okay, great. Um, So you brought in the concept of Texas and the 6-week abortion ban, which I still don't quite, like I've been interested in civics. I've been interested in politics my entire life. Like it's something that I was heavily invested in as a kid. It's something I've continued to keep up with as an adult. Um, I don't quite understand how politicians believe this is a good idea to basically create a law that completely violates existing law. And for those of you that aren't as geeky about politics as I am, case law of the Supreme Court, case law of any court is actually law. When they make a ruling, it becomes law. Like it doesn't have to be written into the law. It is law because it becomes a precedent. And then any further rulings based on that precedent are as if it was a written law passed by the legislature. That's Roe v. Wade that I'm referencing. Roe v. Wade was a case where they decided that fetal viability was the line where we would draw between the rights of a mother, a woman as an individual versus the rights of an unborn fetus as an individual. Once they could become viable in their own right, they would have similar rights to an adult, and we would put the burden of care on the mother at that point. It's a bit of a splitting the baby decision. Roe v. Wade was never the best decision in the world, but what the 6-week ban does is basically create a slave class. That slave class is all women all uterus having people in the United States. So if they become pregnant, for any reason, this could include rape, incest, could include any reason, could include I don't know, like if we're going to go this far, the state could decide to start ordering people to get pregnant. Those women then have to carry that child to term if they cannot seek and get an abortion performed before the 6th week of gestation. 6 weeks of gestation, by the way, is right about the time most people figure out that they're pregnant. It is not very long. So Texas has, under Greg Abbott, been passing a lot of these kind of things. They also recently passed the what I'll call the trans illegal making trans illegal laws. They are saying that any adult supporting a legally a minor of any type, their own care, any other person's somebody that's providing care, a teacher, for instance, in supporting a minor who feels that they're transitioning, that they are committing an act of child abuse, and they have created another, similar to the abortion ban, they've created another loophole whereby the state isn't prosecuting people, but you can report people to the state, and there's a bounty on their head. They'll give you $10,000, and they will use Child Protective Services to investigate the case that you've created. I don't know. I don't know where. I mean, feel free to jump in anytime, you guys. I keep these conversations relatively loose. I don't hold I don't hold a monopoly on good ideas here, but where where does Texas get off? That's my question. Go ahead.
So I'm from Texas, actually born and raised. I was born in Abilene, Texas, and I was raised in Amarillo, Texas. And I came up here after college for work, and I'm very, very, very happy to live up here. And I'm also like very sad for what's going on in my home state. And I just want to say Texas is very purple, and it gets a pretty bad rap for being such a red state, but it's actually like 49% Democrat, progressive, liberal. We don't think of that when we think of Texas because there's just enough of a majority to tip red every single time. My inclination, or my like if I could look in the crystal ball, I would guess that Abbott has a very short window left. I would guess that these decisions that he has made are going to cost him his political career. That's what I think. I think Texans are.
I mean, do you think it cost him his political career, or do you? I mean, what most people, well, what I would say, most people in politics see Abbott doing is setting himself up for a federal career, rather than just being the governor of a state.
That's interesting. I can only speak to the people that I know in Texas, and I know a lot of Texans, and they are infuriated with recent, like, just the two pieces that you discussed, the 6-week abortion ban and the attack against trans children. It's so sad for Texans, and it's like rage inducing. So I think that Abbott is on his way out. But I also hear what you're saying, that he could be setting himself up for whatever's next. So
Yeah, I mean, like he's pressing all the hot button issues. He's doing the classic 80s Tea Party thing, 80s 90s Tea Party thing of, pushing on home, God, and family. interestingly, one of the first cases being brought of investigation in Texas is of a mother that works for the Child Protective Services Agency is being investigated because their 16-year-old is transitioning. And yeah, so that's a thing. Um, I don't like I said I don't know. Is it maybe it's just selfishness. Maybe it's just, like these politicians think, oh, I can score a few political points, and the only people I'm hurting are people I don't like anyway. Um, that's all I've got. That's I can't put myself. I'm usually pretty good at like putting myself in other people's mindsets, and I can't wrap my head around the other side of this argument, the side that says, it's cool to dunk on trans kids. Go ahead. No, go ahead and talk. What's up?
Yeah, I'm agreeing, like solidly agreeing. And I think it's rhetoric that is catchable from other places that they want to like take that on and live in it. And I just think that is just my hope that, we don't have something that starts catching other places and spreading in that type of way. Because it's like why? It's like why? Why?
Well, I mean,
Why?
like it has. I mean, this is not by far the first time that I referenced the Tea Party of the '90s, and if you look at global politics, the Tea Party of the '90s led directly to things like Putin, and Putin winning populist support amongst certain segments of the Russian population with his anti-gay and anti-trans goon squads, literal goon squads. Like they literally had people roaming the streets of Russia, beating people up, and you had a lot of protests, but much like here in America, it doesn't seem to do much when when you can't actually get through to the oligarchs and so that's the thing to me. Like I don't get what is the end game? Like like where's the oligarchy gonna go ahead?
Since you referenced Putin, I think that that's an interesting comparison. I think that what we are seeing is a major grasp at power, the very last, like, throttle of the patriarchy. It's like, I think that there's a lot of fear in conservatives that they are losing control, they're losing their religion, they're losing the things that to them are like the pinnacle of a functioning society. And um, and we know that society can and will function in a forward moving way that is just more beautiful, more inclusive, more encompassing. But to the other side of the spectrum, this is like the death of society, and this is their attempt at grasping. It's like the last attempt at control, I believe, because I think it's really scary for conservatives to look at what's going on in the Northeast, what's going on in California, what's happening to our country and our morals and our standards. And I think that these pieces of legislation are fear based. They're afraid to progress
Hmm.
in this direction.
What where would that fear come from? Like, so I mean, I'm not directly pushing back against your assertion. I think there's an element of that. But my question would be, what is, like, and for my audience who doesn't watch this a lot, this we're all artists here. We spend our time trying to understand people all the time. like trying to really delve into motivations, delve into psychology. And that's why we're having these conversations. You know, like we try to figure these things out because it's necessary. You know, you want to tell the story of the world, you got to know how the world works. So where does this fear? What is the root of this fear? Where does this fear come from? When you know the Christianity isn't going anywhere, and it's not real Christianity anyway. You know, the patriarchy isn't actually going anywhere. You have what the top 1% is like 0.02% women. You know, you have uh, the control of government isn't going anywhere. You have so much gerrymandering that even as a minority opinion in a state like Texas, that you know you're saying is 50% liberal progressive, 50% conservative. They still win every election. They still, have every governorship. They still have the entire legislature. We're in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is another great example of that. Like, we have a really nicely, evenly divided population that is pretty representative of the country as a whole. We have two major cities, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, that are, as progressive and liberal as they get. We like Philadelphia, we say, like it's a safe city, it's a what you call it, the immigration status,
Sure.
sanctuary city. Thank you. It's a sanctuary city. It's welcoming. We welcome immigrants. We welcome people from all over the place, because in a city you get to learn that things don't work unless you have more people buying into them all the time. And we have a huge rural population that are very conservative. They take care of themselves. They're independent. They know how to do things for themselves, and therefore they want people out of their lives. And it's evenly split that way. And with those experiences come certain values. The liberal population has values of, hey, I want to take care of my neighbor. I want to take care of everybody. I want to make sure everybody has a leg up, because we're so close to each other. I can't throw a stone, literally, because I will hit somebody. Like, whereas, you go to rural Pennsylvania, you can't hit somebody by throwing a stone. So in a rural setting, that the values of independence, the values of the society being like it always has been, or the idealized version of it in your head anyway, it makes sense out there. Yet we have a legislature that is solidly Republican, solidly conservative, that proposes things that are really bad ideas. And we have a governor that is thankfully Democrat, because we have the governor's office is represented by a direct vote. So, we have direct vote numbers that show that, this is actually a majority liberal state.
Yay, shout out to Tom Wolf.
I mean, personally, I think he could do a better job at being a liberal and a progressive, but yeah, shout out to someone. So, like, this whole thing of gerrymandering, this whole thing of voter suppression happens everywhere. It's not as successful in some places as others, but Texas is experiencing it right now. They're having their primaries, and a lot of districts are turning away either Democratic voters. Well, a lot more districts are turning away Democratic voters than are turning away Republican voters, but there are a few districts that are turning away Republican voters, and this is apparently because their elections monitors, they don't have both a conservative and a liberal elections monitor, a Republican and a Democrat elections monitor at each polling location. And So apparently the law in Texas is that they have to then apply for emergency waiver to be able to continue to operate for both sets of voters. But that those applications aren't being made by the election commission officials in each voting district. So not only that, but Texas recently passed a voter roll purge law that purged many legitimate voters who've voted in every election for the past, 5, 10 elections. So that is troublesome. That's worrisome. And I think that's when you see these, to your point, this is perhaps a last vestige of that sort of control. And yes, that sort of conservative mindset is losing control, losing popularity amongst the population. I mean, at some point, do you just have to give up and be like, okay, this is where the world is going? I don't know. That's okay.
I think that religion and I just think this all comes down to religion and education. So if you don't, like you said, if you don't live next door or in your social circle, if you don't have any trans friends, if you don't have any Black friends, if you don't have any friends that are like different than you, or if your neighbors are all this like sameness, you don't vote on behalf of people that you don't know exist. And so I think that that's a huge part of what this issue is. And then the other half of the issue is a deep seated religious conservatism that truly believes that if you seek an abortion, you are going against God. And that is the root of what's happening.
All right,
Is
but
that
when I was younger, my family is very religious. I studied Christianity. But if your neighbor, like the what's the scripture? You are not your brother's keeper. You are not responsible for if somebody next to you wants to get an abortion, that's not your call to. You can preach to them, you can proselytize to them, but you cannot control them. You can. That's no part of Christianity. So like I kind of push back when anybody says this is a religious matter. I don't know that.
I think that there is a bit of judgment that comes from some sects,
Hmm.
uh, denominations. I'm not sure exactly what the word is, but I think that there is like a judgment, a sort of like figurative stoning, if you will. Like, I think that there's a bit of, I am called to judge you. Does this make sense? Like, it, um, And I thought it was interesting what you said, James, when you said it's fake Christianity. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like specific branches of the religion that have become not what the foundation of Christianity is, but these branches go far and they have deep roots and they vote also.
Yeah. Um, so there's also kind of a pushback here coming from the nation as a whole, um, and that perhaps the federal government should be pushing back on these kinds of laws. And I think so. That the federal government should be pushing back on these sort of laws. Last night at the State of the Union, President Biden gave a State of the Union address. He talked about several things, but he kind of conspicuously avoided certain things, and then also perhaps most insidiously suggested we need to fund police rather than defund police, and going directly opposite his campaign promises to and his support amongst the progressive members of the liberal wing of our democracy. Why do you, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I know Biden has always been kind of a middle ground kind of person. He's always kind of been like, oh, I'm gonna join, unite the parties. I'm gonna be somebody that everybody can trust. Um, like of just of your own opinion, where do you think that gets politicians in modern political parlance?
That's the danger zone. I don't know. Middle ground is like, especially you are the president of the United States. We're all kind of we're all looking to you people in power, and we're like, well, I can't do anything. And this is getting me, and I'd like to do something about it, but there's only so little that we can do. And I think that's when we start to approach the danger zone of having, especially Joe, is, like disappointing at best right now. And so it's frustrating. I feel like we need him to just have an opinion. One way or the other. I'm tired of seeing him exist in that middle area. I'm tired of seeing in general our leaders exist in that middle area. That it's like, I think it probably comes out of fear, out of wanting to appease one side or the other, and not wanting to add to the unrest that we are already all existing through. But it's about time we get a solid yay or nay from you, is kind of how I've been feeling. That like that's the danger zone that he's been kind of swimming in, and it seems pretty comfortable to stay there and hang out there. And it's frustrating to observe.
So there's a pushback from moderate Democrats, and again, this kind of goes to a topic I had last week of there's a danger in the media of taking a relatively unpopular opinion and presenting it as the populist opinion. I wouldn't say that the majority of Democrats, actual liberal people, the people who vote for Democrats, feel this way, but a friend of the channel, David Hodges, was just commenting on our Facebook feed that this was our pandering to deprive Republicans of a campaign issue. There's been this pushback from Democratic leadership since the first vestiges of defund the campaign, that the phrase defund the police, the actual phrase itself, is somehow a bad phrase, that that it doesn't get the message across, or that it requires too much explaining, or that that it turns people off. I kind of feel like defund the police uh, is what it is. I think I mean, that's my feeling. I feel like, if I say defund the police, that's the whole message. I don't really have any more explaining to do, but I don't know. Where do you guys sit on this? Like if I say defund the police, what comes to mind for you?
I just finished the Netflix documentary Winter on Fire about Ukraine in 2013. And I can say that I do not want to live in a police state. I do not want my child growing up in a police state. Um, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I do not want that. Period.
Okay.
And I will vote always against that.
Mm.
Um, what what do you think? What do you think of the assertion that defund the police is a bad slogan, that people can't quote unquote get behind it?
Yeah, I can get behind it. I don't see the confusion or the what, I don't see the mud. I think it's a pretty simple statement and says, like you said, says what it means. Um, I think people, depending on your opinion, I think people are quick to, say, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Or I don't really understand that. And I think in a way that's people's resistance just in general to an idea. Um, it's easier to say, I don't really get that. I might have to, think about that some more. It's a way of saying, I maybe, no, I don't agree with you, but in nicer words, I guess.
We're on the same side. I just don't agree with you, and I just want to I just want to say that without saying it. Rep Rashida Tlaib responded to the was one of the respondents to the State of the Union. A quote from her response: "We can't police away homelessness, poverty, or the mental health crisis in our country. Care, not more criminalization, is how we ensure lasting safety for all." And I think that's. I will say that at some points in my history, I have been of the opinion that police, like we've all grown up in kind of a really rich environment of what is popularly called propaganda now. Like you have all this propaganda growing up that the military is great, the police are great, they're here to protect you, they are the good guys, blah blah blah. I think that I would say that pretty reliably through my 20s ish, I was kind of imbued in that propaganda. I was kind of the opinion, like, yeah, police will usually try and be helpful. There are some bad cops, but there are more good cops. Blah blah blah. Um, I think that the recent discussion you're where you take the budget numbers of all these major cities, and you look at what the city is spending money on, and then you realize that we've made policing, criminalization, incarceration a priority through our expenditures. Our wallets, as a city, say that we care more about those things than we care about homelessness, than we care about feeding people, than we care about mental health, than we care about the arts, than we care about anything. And Thereby policing becomes the tool with which we try to resolve all problems. Because where are you going to turn? Like if I'm a politician and I'm looking at my budget and I go, where the heck am I spending most of my money? Well, I'm going to turn to that department when I need something done, because I'm going to try and figure out how to get the best funded people on the job. So yeah, that's I hate to. I don't want to have to explain defund the police, but because it does mean what it says, it means defund the police. The unwritten part, the part that that will sell you on it, that will make you understand it, I guess, is unfortunately in need of explanation every once in a while. And I don't know why it's in need of explanation, perhaps, other than that propaganda. You know, maybe we start producing pieces that are anti-propaganda or something. I don't know.
This is America. Money talks
Mm,
here.
mm,
That's what we listen to. Unfortunately, I'm not proud of that, but this is America.
Yeah.
Defund the police is that makes sense to us.
Hmm.
We can hear that. That hits our ears in a way that it speaks loudly.
Hmm.
We speak in dollars over here.
Speaking of dollars, one of the more populist ideas and one of the better ideas to come out of the State of the Union is a cap on the cost of insulin at $35 a month, so every family can afford it. I will say that even capping it at $35 a month is not mean everybody can afford it. I know I've lived through times in my life where if I could cut a $35 bill out of my life, I would have been much happier. But I know of times in my life where I didn't even spend $35 a month on food, but that's neither here nor there. It is a good idea to probably cap the price of insulin. It is something that the federal government could do. I think that's an idea that most people can get behind, regardless of their political leanings. But I guarantee you this is going to be a hard push forward. Why? Because we speak with our money, and who has the most money besides the military and the police? The pharmacy industry has the most money. Yeah. Um, Interesting. Side note, I spent a lot of my youth in my younger time in advertising, in my 20s, and saw the inside of some of the things that, I could align myself with. And pharma companies throw around a lot of money. They literally hire models who have no experience with anything other than modeling to go door to door, quite literally, to doctors' offices and offer them things in order to get the information about their drugs out there. That's kind of.
I'm torn on this one. This is a topic where I sort of like go back and forth because I love um, what medicine can do.
Sure.
Like, I love vaccines. I have two nurses in my family. Like, I love modern medicine. And then on the other hand, I totally know what you're saying. So this is one where I'm like,
Medicine isn't the enemy here. It's the people who want to commoditize and profit from medicine, I think, are the ones not honoring society. Yeah, the guys who invented the polio vaccine, well, even closer to this issue, the guys who invented insulin made it public domain. They made insulin and the production of insulin public domain. It is a product that anyone can produce for free. They don't have to pay any copyright fees. They don't have to pay a residual to anyone for having invented it. The guys who invented it literally made it free to produce. So why did Martin Scarelli make it $150 a dose? Then why did whose daughter is that? That's Joe Manchin's daughter. Joe Manchin's daughter made insulin super expensive because she runs a pharmacy, the pricing structure of a pharmacy company. Joe Manchin, by the way, at the State of the Union, sat on the Republican side of the aisle for the entire State of the Union, and clapped and and booed along with the Republican side of the aisle. So that's a thing. Um, just I don't know. It's interesting because we don't often talk about uh, these like kind of optical things, but that's actually a huge optical thing that in legislative parlance is equivalent to waving the flag of an enemy country and saying you're going to defect before you do, because he's technically still a Democrat. Um, anyway. Um, Dr. Jason Johnson about the GOP response to defund the police. It's a great lesson for Democrats, and I'm going to push back on David. David's been commenting about this defund topic in our Facebook feed. And anybody can feel free to join the conversation by commenting on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching. Feel free. I see them. So the GOP response is a great lesson for Democrats. Biden just said he wants to fund the police in his State of the Union, but the Iowa governor still accuses the Dems of wanting to defund the police. The leader of this is my quote, I'm ending the quote there of Dr. Jason Johnson, but the leader of the Democratic Party says he wants to fund the police, and yet the Iowa governor says we still want to defund the police. And that being true, their attacks are dog whistles. The rest of the quote is their attacks are dog whistles that are seldom connected to actual policy, so stop responding to them. What he's saying there is defunding the police or pushback against defund the police has nothing to do with the reality of winning elections. They've created this narrative that that Democrats want to defund the police. It's just an extension of the narrative that Democrats are weak on crime, that they're liberals who just want people to they want criminals to go free. It's the same arguments that people locally are using against our district attorney's office, saying that, oh, he just lets everybody go free, that we need more tough on crime punishment so that criminals are afraid again. And I got in this long argument with the one of the Republican groups here in the city with regards to the safety measures of Washington Avenue and changing the layout of Washington Avenue. And they're pushing back on this by saying everybody's not actually about safety and accusing me of not being about safety because I agree with defunding the police. Anyway, these are things that people seem to use to force their constituency to bite into whatever they're saying. And so, to my earlier point that we were talking about, Greg Abbott, and I was talking about what you were saying, Jessica, how I think Abbott's just setting himself up for a national election. What else? I guess David joined the broadcast a little late because he's asking if you guys could speak about your project. We did cover Medea a little bit, but we can pull it back in for you. We were talking a little bit about how Medea fits in with the topics of the day because, and feel free to take it from there, Jessica and Ann.
Well, this one goes back to the big pharma conversation. I know this is crazy. This is a crazy segue back into that. But one of the things, one of the larger conversations that I have heard from several different audience members is the idea of postpartum depression and how after having a baby, um, there's like a hormonal roller coaster that happens in the body and the brain, and we don't often make space or room to care for that. And so the story of Medea is could possibly be a story of uncared for postpartum depression. And I think that as a society, if we valued motherhood wellness more, and if we valued postpartum care more, then maybe some of, I think that if the mother is well and healthy mentally and physically, all of society is well and healthy mentally and physically. So that was just a little segue from me.
I think
Anna?
oh, go ahead, Anna. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. No, I was just nodding in agreement. I also think we could take it back to, men in power, money hungry men in power. If you're going to look at that, I think that's a big theme that's been coming up and relevant to now, and now and always, but in our production of Medea, just men with money in power who, don't care about the little people or the people they, can't see, don't know. I know that's come up a lot in our conversation today. Just to
I think that speaking to that point, rounding that idea off, that there are other ways to take care of health and mental health, other than just pharmaceuticals, other than just actual doctor care. That I think those are huge portions of caring for your health. But we often also talk about housing. I think that housing is a huge portion of your mental health, and without your mental health and a house, your physical health also suffers. You tend to have difficulty, taking care of yourself and also taking care of your mental health. To that point, there's a drive for a pilot project to address the affordable housing crisis in Philly, and it's being pushed back against by neighbors because they just don't want it in their neighborhood. There's also go ahead.
That's just racism.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that's just like good old racism. Like that's all that is. Like what other argument is there? There's no argument for not wanting affordable housing for your neighbor. Like that's ridiculous.
I always say, it always comes back to racism, in one way or another. And people are always like, oh, like everything isn't about racism. Unfortunately, yeah, everything really is actually kind of about racism. It just ends up being that way because racism is really pervasive in the United States. But anyway, it is 11 o'clock. We haven't covered quite all of our topics yet and everything that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer and talk about just quickly touch on a couple of things. I'm going to touch a little bit more on Women's History Month and the history-making nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson for the Supreme Court. I'll talk about a few other things. But I would like to honor my guest's time. I would like to thank you for coming on, and offer you the opportunity to head out. Do you have any last thoughts, last words, Anything you'd like to toss in before you get out of here?
Come see Medea. Come see us. We are so proud of this show, and we truly feel that it was created for Philadelphia, by Philadelphia. We made something for our city, so please come see it.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And feel free to jump on anytime again. Anytime you see the topics and that you might be interested in discussing, feel free to jump on. The link is always the same for guests, so feel free to come by and just have a chat with us.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. All right. Yeah, again, thank you to my guests. Thank you everyone who's still watching and does watch weekly. David just asked, is it mostly dance or scripted too? I believe it is mostly dance. Both the guests are dance choreographers, and I believe there's an element of scripting because they were talking about the character development. But feel free to learn more about Medea. If you missed it in the beginning of our broadcast, we usually cover the current art topic at the top of the show. Feel free to watch it in rewind, or you can rewind now and watch the beginning of the show, and you'll see what they were talking about. And this show will be available to watch again momentarily after the broadcast stops. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple other things. And so feel free to stick around, or you can tune out and tune in next week. Or you can catch up with us another time if you like. But thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. You'll get notifications when we go live. We're also on Twitch and Mob Crush. And so, you can get a subscription to us on any of those places. You'll get a notification when we go live. You can watch it on your cell phone. You can watch it in the background while you do dishes. You can do whatever you like. And if you like what you've seen, please consider also supporting us directly by subscribing to us on Patreon. We have patron subscriptions for as little as $1 a month. As little as $5 a month gets you insider information and news that you wouldn't otherwise get. So in news that you wouldn't otherwise get, there's a lot of kind of interesting suggestions having to do with seizing Russian oligarchs' property. There is, thanks to the political sphere leading up to and including most of the former guy's presidency, a large amount of real estate owned by Russian millionaires and billionaires, and they don't technically own any of that right now. Their assets are frozen. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what happens if a couple of local politicians in, say, New York or Miami decided to seize those assets and do something else with them. Even if it was just to sell them off and make some money for the city's coffers, and fund some of the taxation that they haven't been able to do over refund some of the money that they haven't collected in business taxes over the last couple of years. Fully funding Congresswoman Cori Bush talking about defunding the police this morning. Last night after the State of the Union. Fully funding community safety means funding services that will save lives and keep Black and Brown communities safe. Healthcare, housing, education, living wages, climate action, defund the police. And I'm just going quickly through some of the things that we didn't get to talk about. uh, California being called a socialist experiment, which it is not. That the social approach to costs in California has actually resulted in one of the most wealthy states that produces the most GDP. It's just housing is in a crisis. Yes. Are there solutions? Yes. Will it take radical action by politicians and legislators and others? Yes. There was also recently, February 25th, a map posted, which is just a public search map of properties available. There is not a single home for less than $150,000 east of 55th Street. If you have less than $150,000 or can afford less than $150,000 in mortgage payments, you cannot buy a home in the city of Philadelphia. $150,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money in mortgage payments. It's a couple of thousand a month. Well, a little over $1,500 a month, but still, it's a lot of money for most people. And having industrialization of the housing market has caused these prices to just skyrocket with no real end in that skyrocketing in sight. We need to work diligently to pass laws to protect consumers and protect the ability of regular people to purchase houses, because sooner rather than later, I would predict within the next 5 years, it's going to be quite literally impossible for a regular person to buy a house. And we've covered this topic before, and I would say watch some of our previous episodes where we cover housing and talk briefly about that. What were the other topics that I didn't get to? I talked about sidewalks. I talked about housing now. And we've talked about the Texas trans topic. We've talked about defund quite a lot. Let's talk about the blockade real quick. The blockade that wasn't. So everybody saw the news out of Canada when a group of citizens that were not truckers, I don't think almost any of them were actual long-haul truckers or truckers in any sort of sense, blockaded the city of Ottawa and a couple of other cities, blockaded the Freedom Bridge, which is the main transport in the center of the country between Canada and the United States. It takes tons of commercial traffic every day. And a group of literal fascists, and folks seem to push back on me when I say that they're actual Nazis, but a group of actual Nazis tried to get a similar thing done here. Fortunately or unfortunately, that movement has lost steam as they lose talking points. With mandates being repealed and, folks not being as worried about COVID-19, it's really nothing for them to protest. So they've each of the multiple truck routes across the United States that were supposed to meet up in DC has been failing one at a time. There was supposed to be a large gathering of truckers in DC yesterday before the State of the Union. And if you look at my Twitter feed, you'll see a video of the stage that was set up for them across from the Washington Monument with literally 2 attendees. So that's kind of funny. I apologize for laughing in Schadenfreude. At any rate, this is all back to that concept that not actually popular things can be presented by the media as populist and popular. And then when you look into it, it's not actually that many people supporting them. So hopefully you don't fall victim to that. I hope that, you look into things and look into who's backing things, look into what's actually going on with things rather than just buying into any narrative, including the narrative that I say here on this show. Please, by all means, look into any of the topics that we've brought up today and form your own conclusions. I'm just out here trying to represent what one person who is a person of color believes to be important in the city of Philadelphia in 2022 in this particular case. But that's what I had to go for today. Please tune in next week. If you like what you see, subscribe, support us on Patreon. Next week we have Sue Ryder-Scott and Daniel Lackall with Footlighters Theater talking about their show Next to Normal. We'll have more news, current events, things that you can talk about, think about, and that tie into what's going on in media and the arts in Philadelphia, in the communities of color that are the majority of Philadelphia. So tune in next week. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.